In the next few minutes, you're going to learn 3 very powerful tips on how to fundraise from the doctor of the church, Saint Robert Bellarmine. Hi, I'm Brice Sokolowski, the founder of CatholicFundraiser.net, a website that's completely dedicated to helping Catholics just like you with their fundraising. Whether you're starting out, looking for new ways of fundraising, or looking to improve your fundraising, you are in the right spot. Now, before we jump into Saint Robert Bellarmine and his 3 recommendations on how to improve your fundraising, I want to make sure that you download absolutely for free the 10 Commandments to Catholic Fundraising. This is a guide written by me on everything that I've learned that really works in the Catholic context. So I'm really trying to synthesize what's really worked for me. It's been downloaded by thousands of Catholics. The overall consensus is 2 thumbs up. So I highly recommend that you download it. The link is going to be right below if you're watching this podcast, YouTube, video on my website. The link is always going to be below. Click it and download absolutely for free the 10 Commandments to Catholic Fundraising. Okay, Saint Robert Bellarmine, doctor of the church. I believe 16th century, that's when he was around. And I'm looking at my notes, so if you hear me pause or you see me pause, it's because I'm reading my notes, which are always included in the links. He was from a very strong, solid Catholic family. The third, I believe, of 10 children. His mother was the niece of Pope, let me see his name, Pope Marcellus II, I believe, Pope Marcellus II. And so he grew up in a good home, and at the same time, he was the spiritual father of St. Aloysius Gonzaga, and he was a good friend of St. Francis de Sales. So he had a great network. I should include that in one of the recommendations for fundraising. You can't fundraise alone, and definitely if you're fundraising, you want to be surrounded by good, solid Catholics. So that, I guess you could call it, is a bonus tip, is be surrounded by solid Catholics who are doing some great things with their faith. Okay, diving into the specific topics on how to fundraise in context with St. Robert Bellarmine, I came across a book. I'm adding the link as well to his life. And within this book, there's 3, I think, stories that really help us understand how to fundraise as a Catholic from what St. Robert Bellarmine did. And so here they are. The first recommendation from St. Robert Bellarmine is you've got to pray for those who do not give, because they've got a tougher life than you. Usually when we ask for a donation and we hope somebody donates, especially if they're wealthy, we can get upset if they don't donate. And that's not the right approach. So in this book, it's mentioned that, and I quote, God promises to him who gives alms 100-fold in heaven. And for the person who doesn't, they're unhappy because they store up and they gather everything that they labor for, and in hopes that thieves don't come. And so the book is saying, and this is how St. Robert Bellarmine thought, that it's better to give, but at the same time, if you're not giving, you're in a difficult situation. So instead of saying or being upset that they don't give, practice the virtue of justice, which the virtue of justice is habitual right thinking and the uprightness, and I'm quoting the Catechism, uprightness of his conduct toward his neighbor. So the right conduct to somebody who doesn't donate to you is not to be upset with them, but to actually pray for them, because hoarding and keeping your money and keeping your goods is not the right thing to do. You know it, but just make sure that you're saying a prayer for them, because it's not a good position to just keep your material goods. The second recommendation from St. Robert Bellarmine is to have someone help you manage the donations. This comes from how St. Robert Bellarmine managed his house. So obviously he got tons of donations. He had popes donating to him, so he was quite well off with receiving, but he wanted to make sure that he was managing his donations appropriately. So he actually hired somebody called Peter, I believe, and his name was the Maestro di Casa, the head of the house, and he managed the donations and made sure that they were being spent appropriately. So this is a big recommendation from Saint Robert Bellarmine. The virtue of prudence, which is practical reason to discern our true good in every circumstance. And this is especially true with fundraising. Don't just receive and put it to the side and hope that you use it correctly. Get some help or find some way, some method of making sure that the money goes to where it's supposed to go. The third recommendation is leads into the second one. So you got somebody that's managing, but third, you want to make sure that the money is being used appropriately and nothing is going by the wayside. And in this book, it lists out how Saint Robert Bellarmine managed his funds. And very interestingly, it lists, and I think this is Saint Robert Bellarmine that actually wrote it. There are quotes from him. It says, "My income goes principally in feeding the household." So he had, I believe, about 35 people in his household helping him manage all the work that he was doing. So feeding the household, paying wages and rent, and in clothing the servants. I also give a little to my poor relatives. This is Saint Robert Bellarmine, to relieve their greater needs, and anything that's left over goes in alms or to the support of churches, and not a farthing is put by. So he's making sure that everything is going to the right, for the right use. So that's the third recommendation, is make sure that the money's being spent appropriately into the right buckets. Don't just sporadically spend. Don't, not know what's coming in and that it's not being managed. So make sure that someone's looking out for that stuff. And if somebody tells you no, don't worry about it. Anyways, those are the three recommendations. I hope this has been helpful. Share this with a friend. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm here to help you. God love you.